Hello and welcome. I'm Helen Atkinson, Senior Editor at Supply Chain Brain. I'm excited to be moderating this webinar today, sponsored by Jarrett Logistics, the topic for which is C-suite discussion, what leading companies are doing to optimize supply chains in 2022. Moments matter in your supply chain, and in today's world of ultra-high competition, those who can react the fastest win through increased market share, avoidance of lost revenue, and reduction in operating expenditures. In order to dig into this, we're first of all going to have a panel discussion with some seasoned practitioners, both a provider and a user of logistics services. I want to extend a warm welcome to Mike Jarrett, President and CEO at Jarrett Logistics. Mike founded Jarrett in 1999. He views business ethics, employee character, and operational efficiency as keys to success. Under his leadership, Jarrett has been recognized for numerous awards. Mike plans to continue growing Jarrett by investing in two key areas: people of character, integrity, and hard work ethic, and leading innovative technology. Mike will be telling us what he's doing to increase supply chain responsiveness using real-world actionable examples that are applicable to any company and industry. I think we all like those. We're also fortunate to have with us today Chris Elwood, Director of Logistics and Operational Strategy at Grimco. Since joining the Grimco team in 2014, Chris has been involved with various logistics and warehousing projects, including automating the company's order segmentation to better service their customers. Prior to Grimco, Chris was with UPS, where he held various roles in industrial engineering, customer solutions management, and supply chain consulting. Welcome, gentlemen. As a bonus, we're going to get a visit from our special guest, Josh Berry, professional Xfinity NASCAR driver. Josh is going to provide us with some insights and commentary relative to NASCAR. He's going to join us a little bit later, as he has a very busy schedule with being in the NASCAR Xfinity Series playoffs. Anyway, there are a lot of reasons to stick around. After the panel discussion, we'll move to a Q&A session with questions from the audience. Please submit any questions at any time using the tab at the bottom of your screen. We will not be using people's titles or company names, so go ahead and ask anything you'd like. If you don't see your question answered during the webinar, please be assured the Jarrett Logistics team will reach out to you offline. Right, let's get going. First of all, I'm going to ask Mike to tell us about Jarrett Logistics. Mike, tell us what Jarrett Logistics does.
Well, thank you, Helen. Thanks for the great introduction. It was a great job. Jarrett is a supply chain management company. We've been in business now for over 24 years. We're based in Northeast Ohio, and we have four main divisions. We're a logistics company, a transportation, and warehousing and fleet services company. Our logistics company focuses on supply chain management for LTL, truckload, expedite, and small parcel. And we focus on large companies that have very complex supply chains. Our transportation division is LTL and truckload brokerage primarily, and then also a trucking division as part of that transportation division. And then warehousing, we provide warehousing services, order fulfillment, shuttle services, pick, pack, and ship. And then our last division is our fleet services division, which provides fleet maintenance and repair for fleets and other trucking companies.
Wow, that's a very broad church. It's nice to see a logistics company that really is involved in all aspects of logistics. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Chris, can you tell me a bit about what you do and what Grimco does?
Sure, thanks, Helen. Yeah, so first of all, we're one of those companies, like Mike said, complex supply chains, and they're a great partner of ours, and I'm glad to be a part of this. But Grimco is a unique story. It's been around since 1875, actually, and started out as an original family GRIMM, and from police firefighter badges to stamping of street signs, license plates, to then manufacturing of street signage, aluminum signage, to then more the current day a wholesale distributor of all things sign products related. We have a vast network of over 50 warehouses, hub and spoke network, 3 manufacturing locations in the U.S., 8 in Canada, and 5 locations in Europe as well. So we're dealing with a lot of also varying size product, which makes it very complex in itself. And having a partner like Jarrett Logistics to help us do some of those things is very valuable.
Wow, great. Well, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you to both of you for setting the scene. Now, let's get started with panel discussion. Mike, tell me, how would you describe the current state of the freight market?
Well, that'd be a long answer, Helen. I might use up
We've
the
only
rest.
got an hour, yeah.
As most people know that are in the supply chain industry, there's a lot of disruption right now in the freight market. It all started back when COVID started a couple of years ago, and some might argue that we are in a permanent disruption. I would disagree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly there's a lot of dynamics that are coming into play that really have created a freight market that's highly disruptive right now. You have things like the interest rates that keep going up from the Federal Reserve. That has a tendency to slow down the economy, which softens up the freight market, particularly the truckload and LTL spaces. You have inflation that's playing a role in what's going on right now in the freight market. Labor continues to be a challenge, getting enough drivers, enough warehousemen. If you look at the 2 largest sectors of the freight market domestically, is the truckload and LTL spaces. And you couldn't ask for a more diametrically opposed markets. Truckload has roughly 800,000 carriers. It's about $700 billion in revenue. And 90+% of those 800,000 carriers have less than 20 trucks in their fleet. And the top 25 truckload carriers handle less than 10% of the total freight spend in the truckload sector. Conversely, the LTL space does about $43 billion a year, and the top 25 carriers handle over 90% of that $43 billion. So it's a very consolidated space. So we're seeing a lot of rate fluctuation, particularly on the spot market in truckload, whereas we're continuing to see increases on the LTL side because of that consolidation that's occurred over the last 15 or 20 years in LTL. So a lot of disruption in the freight market, but and a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities to optimize your supply chain and really get your products to your customers on time in the most efficient way.
Right, and we're seeing some things that we haven't seen either before or for a very long time. I was just at CSCMP last week, and somebody was pointing out that the spread between spot rates and negotiated, pre-negotiated freight rates is as wide as it's ever been, with spot way below pre-negotiated freight rates, and that's I think making for an interesting discussion between shippers and carriers. So tell me, Mike, how is all this sort of weirdness and disruption impacting business leaders and shippers specifically?
Well, I think what it's doing is it's the constant disruption is putting supply chain leaders in a position where they really need to be proactive. And a supply chain, in my opinion, is either broken or it's thriving. And when it's thriving, you're proactive in making decisions that allow you to be resilient and agile, because there's so many unexpected things that are coming up. We have something that's unexpected coming up, possibly with a hurricane that's coming up to Florida, and that creates disruption in the supply chain, particularly when, say, FEMA will pull capacity out of the market to deliver water, generators, mobile homes, other things needed to help those that are in need through this hurricane. those are unexpected things that happen in the supply chain. So it's really important for supply chain leaders to be resilient and agile. And I think the best way to do that is number one, recruit, retain top talent. I think it all starts with people.
Mm-hmm.
Jarrett is a people-centric, tech-enabled company, and I think you have to start with people. So recruit, retain top talent, number one, and then make investments into technology. Technology provides you with opportunities to perform things more automated, more efficient, to allow you to maintain and optimize supply chain.
Right. That's fantastic. And then, Mike, tell me a little bit, you're talking about having excellent people within your organization, which is obviously very important. But how do you view the importance of having good relationships with good shippers? How does one become a preferred shipper with Jarrett Logistics?
Well, relationships mean everything. And I feel strongly that it all starts with culture. Yeah, and when you have culture that's based on values and those things that resonate amongst your teams, then you will, as an organization, reach out to your customers and build relationships with them. And we feel that having sustainable relationships with customers helps for unparalleled communication in a way that provides two-way innovation. And when we do two-way innovation, we're working with our customers in a partnership mindset that allows us to create innovative ways to improve our customer supply chains by working together. It's truly a partnership in the way we approach our customers.
Right. Thank you, Mike. Chris, give me your perspective on how supply chain leaders can win in today's challenging freight market. What are some of your tips?
You got to have access to data. You have to have access to clean data. If you don't have it, start small and just try to grow it. You need that actual data, but also to avoid the paralysis. Find partners, like a Jarrett Logistics that can help you provide the data that they specialize in, or as well as even the automation of possibly getting some of that data back to your system. Look for where your inventory is. If you're a manufacturer or a supplier or a wholesaler like us, you really have to have insight on your inventory because of the disruption and the lead times that have varied so much. I would also say that looking at the forecasting, if you're using a forecasting software or whatever you're doing, you're going to have to spend some time, smoothing that out, because there's not really as much to go on over the last couple of years. So that's what I would focus on that. And again, just the collaboration upstream and downstream with is what's going to help smooth out some of this the best.
That's really interesting that you talk about data and forecasting. Do you think, Chris, that is it all right to rely on a partner such as Jarrett Logistics to lend a sort of greater degree of sophistication in data collection and management? Because I think a lot of people find it quite intimidating.
Absolutely. To have a partner that that you can rely on that data that's sent, that you're going to end up pulling in, as we pull into our BI system that we're going to use in our analytics tools, to know that is clean data, that process is there, is extremely important and valuable for us to get the insight we need. That if we are needing to pivot to even a different mode of transportation, to possibly a different carrier based on performance, various surcharges, things like that insight is valuable, and to have that readily accessible versus having to go digging yourself is extremely important.
That's terrific. And in terms of forecasting, Chris, I'm curious, how has your approach to forecasting changed over the last couple of years, if it has at all?
Yeah, we do have a forecasting software, but we have a great procurement team that digs in and trying to smooth that out, as well as, again, working internally to get that information from our sales folks, our product line managers, as well as reaching out. And you have to have a different level of conversation with your vendors, your suppliers, on what they're seeing. If we over forecast and they do the same, then it just snowballs and builds. So So we need to try to find a way to work out and maybe not rely so much on the actual modeling from the historical, but more of maybe what's more recent, and then as well as what's coming disruption wise.
Right, and that's really fascinating, because I would have thought that your business isn't quite as sensitive to market fluctuations as, say, fashion retail or whatever. So, but it sounds like even your business has really been, impacted by this unpredictability of the last couple of years.
Very, very much so, especially as far as lead times. We source product from all over the world and,
Right.
into all the the different various locations within the U.S. and from the ocean inbound, the disruption there to to the rail to even the trucking shortages, and now possibly what might become a little bit more capacity. Just that going from, let's say, a 30-day lead time of placing a PO to getting something international inbound to our doorway to 90 plus, you don't even know maybe
Wow.
when it is going to get here, is a big challenge. So we have to be dynamic and very flexible and partner with people to help us, make pivots to get that product where we need it to be in the most economical way to, I guess, of course, to support the end customer.
Right, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, did you imagine that you'd be saying things like this 3 years ago?
No, if you go back pre-COVID, I couldn't imagine if somebody said predict what the worst disruption could be. This is beyond where I saw, but it's also challenging. It's fun, and I think there's always something new to work on, and that's the challenge ahead of us. But again, I think the more we can collaborate with up and downstream and with partners, the better we're all going to come out of this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. Mike, I'd like to talk a little bit about lead times and response times to changes in the market and customer demands and supply chain problems. How does response time impact customer experience and internal operations at Jarrett Logistics?
Well, I think it impacts significantly, Helen. I think that, as Chris had said, the availability of data is so important for supply chain executives like Chris to make decisions on a day-to-day basis that impact the supply chain in a way that produces positive outcomes. And so the timeliness with regards to, say, our partnership with our customers, including Grimco, is really important, and we look at it from a digital standpoint as well as from a people standpoint. Data is really important in making decisions, but being able to put that data into a format where customers can use it to make important decisions about their supply chain requires a significant investment in technology in order to use things like artificial intelligence in order to provide that data to our customers in a way that they're able to make better decisions. But it also requires a people aspect, and we as a company, we really pride ourselves on having great people supporting all of our customers. We use a customer account team approach, and it's really important to us to respond very quickly to our customers. One of the things we really like to promote is we answer the phone in 3 rings or less. So it's a pretty fundamental thing, Helen, but I think going back to the basics during a disruptive time frame like now is really important. So when we answer the phone for our customers, it's 3 rings or less. We answer emails in 10 minutes or less. And things like that make a difference for companies like Grimco and executives like Chris to make decisions quickly and be able to provide a better outcome for their customers.
Right, that's fantastic. And you were talking, Mike, about how you are an innovative, Jarrett Logistics is an innovative company, but you also encourage your shipper customers to be innovative. And I was wondering if there was some specific example that you could think of or that had happened between Jarrett and Grimco.
Oh, definitely. Some recent examples when capacity got really tight over the last 6 to 12 months, particularly in the LTL space. As I mentioned, LTL is a market, very consolidated market. So when you have the top 25 LTL carriers handling over 90% of the total LTL volume in the United States, when capacity gets tight, there are challenges associated with getting your freight picked up on time and delivered on time in LTL. Grimco has a lot of longer shipments, over dimension shipments, and LTL carriers are not as likely to pick up over dimension freight as what they used to because of tight capacity.
Sure.
So Chris and his team worked with the Jarrett team on alternative strategies to move their longer over-dimensional freight in other modes, as well as consolidation programs to get their freight to the customer on time.
Right. Fantastic. That's great. And Chris, can you tell me a little bit about how you feel a sort of call to be more innovative and to actually dare to make suggestions to your logistics provider?
Yeah, I think like Mike said, it starts with the people and the culture, but also that quick response. For us, it could mean the difference of whether or not we win that order or not, to turn that inventory, to move that cash flow, but also the end customer, whether or not they're able to get their print job done if they don't have the product. We're almost more of a just-in-time type of supply as well, even though we have products as big as a 17-foot long, 400-pound banner roll down to a squeegee to the printers, the inks themselves. So having that data, but that quick response, and somebody that can also provide the market insights of what's going on in that quick synopsis is very valuable to us to allow us to try to pivot and keep our customers happy.
Fantastic. I'm curious, you mentioned just in time, Chris, and I'd like to get both of your opinions about whether we're moving out of a just in time mentality generally in supply chain management and more into a just in case, where you're going to, spend more money on inventory. Mike, what do you think? Are we moving to just in case?
Definitely, Helen. I think, when we had the shutdowns during COVID, it really tightened up inventory and the products were not available on the shelves. And so what we've seen over the last 18 months is a significant buildup in inventory. And what that's created is a significant strain on the warehousing space across the country. Warehousing space is as tight as it's ever been, because inventory buildup is as high as it's ever been. And then you have more onshoring as well. I think we're less, as manufacturing and distribution, we're less likely to manufacture overseas and get caught in those international bottlenecks. What's going on in Asia right now with some of the lockdowns is causing continual bottlenecks with bringing product across the ocean. So we're seeing more onshoring. We're seeing more inventory buildup to have as you described it, a just-in-case approach to getting your products to your customers as opposed to just in time.
Right. Chris, are you onshoring? Have you changed your procurement strategy at all?
Yes, in some cases. Like I said in the beginning, we've been fortunate to build the product size as well as the disruption has pushed us to help grow our network to that hub and spoke model, 6 hubs, 45 warehouse locations, pushing that volume out to the smaller branches, last mile delivery to take care of that. But the disruption, again, it has us having to pivot, to look at different modes, looking at different partners than we've used before to support that. I think that the end customers, with the amount of disruption, are almost going to have to possibly move away from expecting that just in time. But I would also encourage everybody to the just in case. The inventory is a killer. Just like I said, it causes more disruption. It become obsolete very quickly. It could be the downfall of companies and tying up that cash. So it's more than ever. Where's that balance at? To have enough but not have too much. To have it in the right place. And to be able to move it when you need it. It's a challenge.
Right. And the more inventory that you have, the harder it is to know exactly where everything is and how far away it is. And it's not just about tying up capital. It's about finding places to put it and then being able to find it again, I guess.
Yes, very much so.
Excellent. So, Chris, tell me a little bit about why Grimco selected Jarrett as their partner. What was it? What was the process like? How many companies did you consider? What were the criteria, and what were the winning elements?
I think Grimco has a little bit of a unique story with the relationship with Jarrett. We actually came to know Jarrett Logistics back, I believe it was 2010, prior to me joining Grimco, but through an acquisition in manufacturing based out of Akron. And that the team that came over and stayed with us, that's still part of the company today. At that time, Grimco was using another provider for basically all the LTL, and not as many locations as we are today, but the team, we were going to switch, and the team was very adamant. No, wait, get to know Jarrett Logistics, give them a month, and sure enough, it was eye opening, that partnership, that culture. But we've grown with them; they've grown with us. They take care of not only all of our LTL within the U.S. but also Canada today. So and help us again out with a lot of other analytics and data. So it's been a great partnership, very centric with as far as company cultures, which is awesome. People, investing back into the people, investing in technology, you see it, you feel it. It's actually, I've told Mike how shocking when I went to their headquarters and got to visit and see the team and meet the people in person again. Just how the vibe, that how the feel is, but also how much it replicates what I get to experience at my company, and it opens up the collaboration even more so. I think getting to know them even more as the years go on.
That's fantastic. Can you speak about some of the specific benefits that you've had from working with Jarrett?
Definitely the response time and with their team, and almost feel like they are an extension to us. Our sales folks look at them when they need to, or our warehouses teams when they need to get a bill of lading or a booking or follow up on something, that they almost feel like they're calling an extension of our company or headquarters. But through the API tools that we've talked about, to automate the bookings, to the data, I don't know if you can put a value on that, but I think just that support and the back and forth collaboration is really what has been important to make it successful.
That's fantastic. I'm going to ask you a slightly naughty question. How would you distinguish Jarrett Logistics from UPS, having had the experience of working at UPS?
Well, I look at UPS as the small parcel, provider, okay, right? Jarrett Logistics to me is for us, helps us out more in that LTL world, which UPS stepped away from, and understandably so. I can see in some aspects, but what Jarrett provides for us, as far as they handle it for us. The communication with the various LTL carriers to the contracts, but also holding them accountable to the service levels, and being able to pivot from maybe one carrier to another. That's the response time is definitely a differentiator. I just more that 3PL partnership, I think, than like a small parcel provider or certain service level provider.
Yeah, so picking up the phone in 3 rings is definitely not what one experiences with UPS. That's for sure.
You're right.
So, in fact, Chris, what would you tell somebody who's considering taking on Jarrett as a logistics partner?
Give them as much information about your company as possible, what you're working on, where you're going, what your needs are, but also get to know them, get to know what their capabilities are. Mike rattled off a lot of different areas that they're in, from the LTL to the full truckload to the fleet management. There's things that we foresee in the future that we're not working with them yet, that I'm excited to talk further about them, of where we might be going in the future as far as fleet management or last mile. But getting to know them, and then going through that transition period, that onboarding, that 90-day onboarding or less, collaborating, getting your departments, your group, your IT, working with them. It'll be smooth transition, but I think it's just being open to having that constant communication back and forth is really the key.
Oh, fantastic. A lot of back and forth. Good. And sharing information. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I'm excited to announce that we have Josh Berry on the line. Josh, welcome. Hi, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. We're very excited to have you here. I think this is a first for a supply chain brain webinar. So I had a couple of questions for you, Josh. How does the JR Motorsports team impact your performance on race day?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you guys for all having me. We've really enjoyed working with Mike and the whole Jarrett family at Junior Motorsports this year. They're going to be, for those, obviously my name's Josh Berry. Just want to introduce myself. I drive the Jarrett Logistics race car in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. We'll be racing at Talladega Speedway this weekend on Saturday. Hopefully no hurricanes come in, but we'll be there. Yeah, we're excited for that. Jarrett's going to be on the car for another race for us, so we're really excited for that, and we've enjoyed our partnership with them so far. And but yeah, my race team is a huge, very valuable part of everything we do with the race car. Their responsibility is building and preparing the race car each and every week to try to help it perform at the highest level. So everything they do is extremely important to my performance. And the people part of racing is a huge part of it. Obviously, you can have a great race car, you can have a great engine, but you have to have the people in place to manage that and effectively assemble it and prepare it and hopefully win races.
Wow, yeah, we've been talking very much about the importance of having great people and a great team. So that really dovetails in with that. Josh, how does the spotter specifically provide visibility and proactive communication on race day? Can you explain a bit about that to me?
Yeah, so our spotter basically watches the race from on top of the grandstands, and that gives them obviously a bird's eye view of everything that's happening during the race. They wear a number of radios, but number one radio would be communicating with me, the driver, and they will let me. Obviously, they're letting me know what's around me. If there's a car on my left, a car on my right, in front, behind, anything like that, and they're also communicating with the crew chief kind of behind the scenes. We have like a secondary channel that they will be communicating to the crew chief about different things that they see during the race to kind of keep our radio channel relatively clear throughout the race. And the spotter holds a huge importance. It depends on the track. Like this weekend, we're going to Talladega. It's a unique style of racing. We'll be in a pretty big pack, pretty close together, and having them, and then having a spotter that you're confident in and you believe in and can give you the right information can most definitely be the difference in winning and losing.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell me more. I'm seeing so many parallels here with supply chains. How does the crew chief affect race strategy?
Yeah, so the crew chief is our coach, basically. If you want to look at it that way, they make the decisions of preparing the race car. Their job is to manage and employ the people, get everybody pulling the same direction, and ultimately he's the one that runs the show. And so he decides what they're going to put in the race car and then decides the strategy, right? I think you'll see that throughout the races there's number of opportunities that the caution may come out, we may pit, we may not. Obviously the crew chief holds the decision on whether we will.
Oh, I think we got a little frozen there. Gosh. Uh-oh. Technology. Love it, don't we?
Ellen, I think you had to take a pit stop.
All right, we'll see if we can come back to Josh, but that was fantastic, Josh. And as I said, we're so if we don't see you again, best of luck at Talladega on Saturday. I'm sure things will go very well with the kind of excellence that you've described in your team. So let's get back to Mike and Chris. Oh, there you are.
We're
Josh.
back. We
Josh,
lost
hi. It's so exciting.
I told Helen you had to take a pit stop.
Yeah, we had a quick pit stop. Technical difficulties there.
Always. So, well, that leads me naturally into my next question, which is how does the pit crew impact performance on race day?
Yeah, so the pit crew, that's something that's evolved a ton in motorsports. A lot of our pit crew, the main pit crew, what you're referring to, would be the men and women that would go over the wall and service the car during a pit stop. So their objective would be to change the tires, fuel the car, and make any necessary repairs or adjustments to the chassis during the race. So that position years ago really kind of began as just, really it was kind of your mechanics kind of doing multiple jobs. And now as that's evolved and became more competitive and more important, a lot of our pit crew member are highly trained athletes, former college football players, basketball players, really athletic and just really amazing athletes that do a great job of what they do. So like I said, their objective is to service the car during the pit stop as fast as they can and be accurate and smooth, with no mistakes. And like you said, you can definitely lose or gain a lot of time on pit road, and they've become a huge part of success.
Wow. So it's not enough just to be handy with a screwdriver. Okay, that's good. Excellent. So finally, Josh, I'm curious to know, what is your strategy to get the number 8 Jarrett car into victory lane on Saturday in Talladega?
Yeah, so like I said, I hope all of y'all there listening can tune into our race on Saturday and check it out. So like I said, Talladega is a unique experience for sure. Let's say it's the biggest track in NASCAR. It's 2.6 miles. The longest track, and I believe the widest track as well. So it creates super close, really exciting racing up front. But it makes it difficult as a driver because it's really hard to get separation from the field. You stay really close to each other, and it can make it exciting in the racing part of it. But also, it tends to be some pretty big accidents in those races because everybody's just running so close and tight together. So, for us, our number one goal, we're in the midst of a playoff run here throughout towards the end of the season. So really one of our number one goals is just to stay out of trouble, right? Just have a clean day, execute well, just have clean pit stops, clean, good strategy, and hopefully stay up front for the majority of the race. And like I said, it's going to be a tough one for sure, but I know that we can do it.
Wow, it sounds like you have the right attitude, certainly. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Josh, for joining us, and all the best in Talladega on Saturday night.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Like I said, thank you to Jarrett for everything they do for us, and we're going to try to put their race car in victory lane on Saturday.
Hey, sounds good, Josh. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, that was interesting and really fun. So, Mike and Chris, I know that obviously, Mike, you must be going to the track all the time, and I gather Chris does too. So tell me, each of you, Mike first, what's it actually like to be at a NASCAR race? I've never been to one, so I'm dying to know.
Well, Helen, it's actually a pretty fascinating event to be there live, especially if you're in pit row, where you're right where the car comes in for the tire changes and the refueling. You can really see how teamwork and moments truly do matter. To change 4 tires and refuel in a matter of seconds to get back on the track is the difference between winning and losing. And that type of being right in the thick of things at a racetrack really makes it an experience as opposed to just entertainment. I always like to say NASCAR on TV is entertainment, but NASCAR in pit row is an experience.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, it must be a bit of a nail biter, especially when all the cars are so closely clustered together and there are accidents happening or nearly happening all the time. It sounds like quite a lot of adrenaline going all around, I should imagine. Chris, what's your experience of being at a NASCAR race?
Awesome. getting to see it, just like Mike said, getting to see it in person is a completely different experience. And I got to visit Indy, the Indy race, and thank you, Mike, and the Jarrett team, and got to be in the pits and see it. It is definitely a whole different environment to see it, hear it, smell it. You got to see it. Even if you're not a NASCAR fan, I highly encourage you to try it. If you're a sports fan, it is definitely a unique sport, but what goes into it is truly amazing. You get to see it and feel it just from the whole atmosphere of the track itself and everything that's coordinated to put it on. But the team itself and everything that has to come together to make it successful is amazing, actually. I kind of correlated. I've said it's kind of like one of my favorite sports, football. And maybe that's why so many, former NFL or athletes, like Josh was saying, is interested in it. It's one of those sports that it's how hard can you push yourself mentally, physically, prepare, but then come together and execute as a team. And you see it firsthand, especially when you're getting to experience it from the pit.
Right. Wonderful. So you're really close up with that sense of excellence and seconds counting. That sounds really exciting. Wow. And, obviously we're going to say there are some obvious parallels with supply chain excellence and minutes counting in many ways in that industry too. Mike, what are some of the parallels that you see between the supply chain world and NASCAR?
Well, Helen, there's a lot of similarities between winning in NASCAR as compared to winning in your supply chain. If you look at NASCAR, it's really important. You need to be fast. That's pretty obvious. But you also need to be efficient, have top talent, both in the car as well as in your crew. You have to have great communication between the crew chief, the spotter, the driver, and the rest of the crew. You have to rely and trust on your team. When you rely on and trust your team, you're in it together as opposed to trying to pursue winning individually. And It's very similar in the supply chain world. You need to have partners who are fast, are efficient, that you can rely on, that you trust. You have great two-way communication with your supply chain partners. Behind the scenes in supply chain, just like behind the scenes in NASCAR, really there's four main components. There's execution, there's coordination, there's planning, and there's strategy. I think all four of those are extremely important in winning in supply chain, as well as extremely important in winning in NASCAR.
Wow, that's fantastic. I see a lot of other parallels too. It's just really interesting to hear you talk about this. I think we're going to move on to our audience Q&A now, with questions from the audience. Once again, please submit your questions using the tab at the bottom of your screen. I see a lot coming in already. We'll not be using people's titles or company names, so you should feel free to ask anything you like. And if you don't see your question answered during the webinar, please be assured the Jarrett Logistics team will reach out to you offline. So I had a couple of really interesting ones. Here's one. What could be the impact on the US logistics sector if more and more companies decide to move capacity from China or elsewhere to the domestic market in the next decade? I think, Mike, that's one for you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I hope we do. I'm a big fan of onshoring. I think what it'll do is it'll create more capacity constraints in the long term, not necessarily the short term. Short term, we're seeing, capacity loosening up due to some economic downturns, and I think that until the economy picks back up again, and really I think until the Federal Reserve starts to ease off on interest spikes, we'll probably continuing to see in the economy, cooling off, which creates more capacity in domestic transportation. However, e-commerce continues to grow. Even during soft economic times, it's still growing. And so I think you have some dynamics there. If you combine e-commerce growth with, say, onshoring and having manufacturing done more in the United States as opposed to overseas, I think it's it's a great time to be in supply chain. I will say that.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Mike. Chris, one of the audience members wants to know if you can share any examples where data has helped you to coach your own customers on ordering patterns in order to control transportation costs all around.
Yeah, I think that, well, we use our data, especially, freight costs. We compare our freight cost to sales, but we try to make it as seamless as possible. We try to create freight policies like an order minimum instead of passing on an exact freight charge each time. We want it to be as seamless as possible and allow those, our end customers to be able to plan out their pricing, square footage, usage of inks, those types of things. So we try, that also puts even more pressure on us to make sure we're positioning that product correctly and keeping our costs low, keeping our turns and our cash flow up to be able to continue that growth and supply them with what they need. But the data to support that and be open to showing them is a big part of what we do to explain why we have the policies that we do and being confident in those policies.
Cool, that's a great answer. Thank you, Chris. Mike, can you tell us, how has inflation specifically disrupted the pricing model? I know you were talking about it a little bit earlier, but were there any surprises there?
Well, inflation continues to be above 8% at the last reading. And, it impacts a lot of things. Energy, for example, fuel prices, although they've dropped off some over the last 30 to 45 days, they're still very high. And then, of course, cost of recruiting and retaining top talent continues to be a challenge. And then, of course, inflation has a tendency to cause consumers to buy goods that are necessities as opposed to luxuries. And so what we're seeing is a loosening up of capacity because there's less goods to be moved. So I think inflation plays a role in supply chain in a lot of ways because it does impact your cost of doing business, which from a supply chain management standpoint as a 3PL, that's a challenge. But it also then plays a role in a consumer's demand for purchasing products, which is less goods to be transported.
Yeah. So you're really juggling both ends of the spectrum there. It's been quite something, and we see this huge buildup of inventory. I know that Target and Walmart have been talking about that lately, and that's been quite challenging. Yes, thank you. So another question from Mike. You talked about staying on the leading edge of technology, obviously very important, but given that tech tools change so quickly and can become obsolete, what are your strategies to identify those that are leading edge and will have longevity and the companies will actually stick around? And this person doesn't want you to give away any secrets, but just is curious to know how you distinguish your company from the competition.
Well, I think technology is a key component. As I said earlier on, we're a people-centric, tech-enabled company. So we start with our people, and then we provide our people with technology as one of the tools to deliver our services to customers like Chris and the Grimco team the most efficient way. And technology, staying leading edge, means that you're staying abreast of what technology is doing in the supply chain space and how can it help you provide a higher level of service to your customers. If you look at some of the things that we've done over the last couple of years is, artificial intelligence. We deployed artificial intelligence throughout our company over the last 12 to 24 months. That's been a tremendous benefit to our ability to automate and deliver our services to our customers more efficiently. We use API technology. API, application program interface, has replaced EDI as the preferred method for integrating with customers. Chris mentioned earlier on in this webinar how we integrated with the Grimco system using API. It's a much more flexible technology The cost of acquisition is much lower. So if you can use these technology tools to innovate and deliver your services in a more automated fashion, it's a win all around. It's a win for us as a 3PL, but also it's a win for all of our customers. They're able to piggyback onto the infrastructure that we are investing in literally every month, significant dollars to continue to upgrade our technology platform.
I'm just curious, I mean, have you ever had a situation where you've sort of invested in a technology platform or a particular solution, and then the company's just kind of flaked out on you, or it's been superseded or whatever? It sounds like you've got a fairly steady experience of adopting technology.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to keep going back to the well. We call those small, fast, cheap experiments, Helen. When you do that, and sometimes they're not so cheap, but they're small and they're fast, and we will experiment with ideas to create more innovative solutions that help our customers have a more optimized supply chain. And that's what you have to do. One of our core values is entrepreneurial spirit. And what that means is we're developing creative solutions to help our customers optimize their supply chains. And sometimes that means that you're going to do small, fast, cheap experiments that do not create the outcomes that you thought they would. So you move on and you go to the next technological solution that will, in fact, make a difference in the outcomes.
Interesting. Well, I always say if you don't get it wrong, sometimes you're not experimenting enough.
That's right.
Not being innovative. So that's great. That's a great answer. Thank you.
Michael Jordan once said he missed 30,000 shots in his career. And if he would have stopped shooting after he missed some of his baskets, he wouldn't have been one of the greatest of all time. So that's a good analogy to use. That's what entrepreneurial spirit's all about.
Yeah, fantastic, Mike. That's a great answer. I love that quote. That's fantastic. And I think this question is more for Mike, but I'd be curious to know what Chris has to say. Could the recent FedEx warnings on slowdown in demand be a harbinger of what the logistics global market could experience in 2023?
Yes, I'll answer first and let Chris talk. He's an expert in the small parcel world. His background UPS, but my answer to your question is I believe it is. Small parcel, and FedEx is a global supply chain company. I used to work at FedEx many years ago, so I know the organization really well.
Right.
Very well run company, and I think their announcement that their numbers are missing Wall Street estimates is a prelude to what we're seeing in the overall economy. I think we're seeing a softening of the market. And as we all know, the supply chain industry is a great barometer for the overall economy. And so I think FedEx's announcement is something that we need to keep a close eye on. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's an example of how dynamic or how much disruption there is. A company of that size, the way they execute, but I think a lot of the disruption caused people to go out and seek other capacity, other modes, other things. And then on this downside, maybe they thought things were going to continue, and they over forecasted for their, growing out their network, their drivers, their volume. And on the downside of that, you're seeing the impact. So I think it's just being able to be quick and fast, which is part of what, Jarrett's mantra is be able to pivot, be able to test things, and then as it's proven, then build it out, but be able to retract if things change. I think that it's definitely interesting and something to keep an eye on, but I would expect that they'll come out of it pretty well and adjust.
Cool. And it sounds like everybody needs a good pit crew going forward. So we're getting close to the top of the hour. We've got time for one final question, and that is this: as we go into the fourth quarter and 2023, how can business leaders optimize their supply? Mike, I'll go with you first.
Well, Helen, I think we look in the short term here to finish out the year. We're heading into the fourth quarter and also into 2023. I think as supply chain leaders, you want to partner with companies that are fast, efficient, and reliable. And I think when I say that, fast means moments matter, as we've been talking about in this webinar, providing information and data quickly. Efficient means moving your products from point A to point B, the least cost method way. And then lastly, reliable. When things go wrong, I like to say supply chain is like Murphy's Law. When things can go wrong, they will. And you need a reliable partner who's going to be there to answer your questions and provide you with information that you need in order to keep your products moving through your supply chain. So lean into partners, 3PLs that are people-centric, that have the top talent as part of their teams, and also those that invest heavily into technology. I think that'll carry you through the rest of this year as well as into 2023.
Fantastic. That's great. Partnerships and technology. Yes. Very important. Chris, how can business leaders optimize their supply chains for success going into 2023?
I think it's going to take a different level of collaboration up and down the stream with your vendors, your suppliers, from your, if you're a manufacturer, that forecast adjustments. We talked about somehow smoothing out that forecast, as well as different collaboration, to the end customer. What are they expecting? What are they seeing? What are they wanting? Maybe a different, surveys. Go back to a marketing type of perspective that's gaining that information that you're going to be able to funnel back upstream. But definitely having the data to be able to make those quick, smart decisions and not get lost in it, or partner with somebody that can help provide that data and those market insights, I think is going to be even more important than ever before. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thank you to Mike from Jarrett Logistics and Chris from Grinco and Josh from NASCAR. Best of luck on Saturday, Josh. And then a special thanks to you, everyone who participated. I hope we've had some fun today. And I know we've learned a lot about how to thrive in a challenging global supply chain market. We had a lot of questions today, and we'll be answering the ones we didn't get to with you offline. There's some contact information on your screen right now. You're also going to get an email later with a link to view the webinar on demand, and you can share that with other people. And there will also be some information about how to contact Jarrett Logistics to get that freight analysis that they offer. And also, if you have more questions. Thank you so much to everybody for your participation. Stay safe, stay happy, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks.